all born with like a hand, a set of cards. There are two types of people, right? Those who accept the hand and those who reject the hand and ask for a reshuffle, or reject the hand and get new cards, or continue to draw new cards, right? And I see these cards as your life. You can either accept it as it is and be bitter about it, or you can go out and create something new out of it and follow this untraditional, unorthodox path.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where I, Kyle, from Curtin Real Estate, interview local top dogs in the real estate investing, wealth building, and personal finance industries. Let's build together. What's up, guys? This week's guest on the podcast is a really cool local investor who is super inspiring. Johnny has some really cool accomplishments and super valuable advice in different areas about entrepreneurship and real estate investing. In this episode, Johnny and I talk about a bunch of topics, a few of which include playing your hand, best spending your time and focus, and shouting your accomplishments. There's so much to absorb in this episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Before we jump in, would you guys mind please leaving a rating and a review down below? I always love hearing your thoughts on how I can make the podcast better. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Let's jump right into the episode. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 97 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Today, we get the great pleasure of chatting with Mr. Johnny Bui, an awesome house hacker in the city of Gardner, Mass. I'm extremely excited to chat with Johnny. What is going on, my friend? How the heck are you?
Kyle, I am doing great. Very excited to be here. Very humbled. And I'm thankful that you're having me on as a guest.
Thank you so much, man. It means a ton. It does. So, Johnny, to kind of jump right into things, man, like tell us a little bit about, what kind of got you into real estate? Like what kind of, what's kind of your backstory, I guess you could say.
For sure. To take you back to where it began, I actually became a real estate agent when I was 19. And this was in between schools. I was transferring from one school, a liberal arts school, to a business school, right? And this business school, it was called Babson College, and it was a college of very high achievers. And I wanted to be competitive. Everyone had something going on there, whether it be having a business or a nonprofit that they are starting or have started, or they're working for this big name tech company, or they're actively freelancing. And so knowing that, that summer when I was transferring schools, I set out to become, one, a real estate agent, but also two, a published book author, both of which would, take its course on me over the next, 2 years or so. And so I officially entered my foray into real estate as an agent during that time in 2018. And since then, I've been practicing on and off as an agent, renting apartments, but not finding very much long-term success due to a number of reasons. But real estate investing specifically, I learned about that through osmosis, really listening to different things throughout college. And the light bulb for me just went off after I graduated and after starting my first job. I would say that two things worked out for me post-college, and post-college for me is December 2020. The pandemic forced me to slow down my pursuit of independence. There's a lot of people, as you know, who fall into the trap of moving out right away after they graduate. And that was certainly my intent, because I wanted to see new cities. I wanted to have that first taste of my first apartment, and also live in a major city, right? So pandemic forced me to slow down. Number two, I was working for it. So I wasn't being pulled in any geographic location. So I stayed home, allowed all the knowledge that I've accumulated, both working as an agent, but also in real estate that I've accumulated through college. This serenade. That's how I got started. And post college was to save up enough so that I can purchase my first multifamily property in Boston, because I'd always wanted to live in Boston. So that was my initial plan.
Wow. That's crazy, man. Like, there's so much that I want to like dig into in there. So even like to start off, man, like tell us a little bit about, the like the author, like pursuit and everything. Like where did that like kind of space come from too? Because like you totally blew my mind, man. Like holy crap, like that's cool.
So I would consider myself as a high achiever when I was in college, right? So, entering my sophomore year at Clark University, I had a lot of things going for me. I was the president of the entrepreneurship club. I had started a business with my club with the goal of spreading more awareness of entrepreneurship on campus. And so it was twofold. We were selling a service, and also we were spreading the message of entrepreneurship in our club. With that, I was also working I was working at a farmer's market on campus as well. I was taking entrepreneurship courses, and it was a great and it was a successful year. I had plans to transfer to this school that I was intent on getting into. I had study abroad plans as a backup plan, but to get straight to the point, all of this was broadcasted on my LinkedIn. And it was then that a professor from Georgetown University reached out and pitched this program that he was working on, this class that he had started at Georgetown University, where he was helping students become authors. And now to push his goal even further, he was trying to open this course to students that did not go to Georgetown University. And he reached out to me because I'm a student, and also because of what I do, my profile, right? Like the high achieving profile. Found me, reached out, offered me the opportunity. I took it because why not? I was into saying yes. I was into saying yes to opportunity at the time, and so I took it on, and it became about a 2.5 year journey for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That's wicked cool. I mean, like even like to start off, like just kind of posting, about like kind of your journey to that point, and like that's something that's really beautiful, man. Is like just like putting yourself out there and stuff like that, and like you never know like who can be watching, and like that's crazy.
Yeah, and there's so much more for me to say about that. I'd love to share that later into the podcast, but I have this whole philosophy about self promotion.
Of course, man. Yeah, I would definitely love to hear it. So yeah, man. So tell us, like you get out of school. You know what I mean? Kind of like tell us a little bit about kind of starting to look for that first property. Like take us kind of from like pre-approval all the way to like kind of closing on the place that you did.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give you a clear cut look at what the journey looked like, I had shared earlier that my goal was to purchase my first real estate investment property closer to Boston, in the Boston area, because kill two birds with one stone. I want to live there, and I also want to be an investor.
Yeah.
This something happened in December of 2021 that forced me to reconsider that plan, right? Because this plan, if I had truly followed it to the T, it would have taken me a couple years to save up the amount that I needed. Not knowing that today's rates would be as high as it would be, maybe even longer. But in December of 2021, I had actually tore my Achilles while training for American Ninja Warrior, another big goal of mine. And when I tore my Achilles, it effectively prevented any sport-related activity for me. So it forced me to reconsider my goals. And I had to reevaluate which goals could I accelerate for the time being if I can't actively train.
Yeah.
And it was clear to me that, boom, right then and there, it was to become an investor. Maybe Boston is in the picture, but maybe it's not in the cards right now. After a year of savings, because I was intentional about this goal, I started saving the moment I started working in January 2021. After a year, I had about like $40,000 saved. And it was helpful too, because our college loans were like put on pause due to the pandemic. So I had an extra, X amount of money saved because I didn't have to pay back my loan. So I had all this saved up, and it was a decent down payment, $40K. So what I did was I wanted to find a property in my current area, right, which is like the Worcester, Massachusetts area. I found an agent and I got connected to an amazing loan officer. Shout out to Emily DeGray from Homebridge Services, Homebridge Financial Services, and we got moving. I was quickly pre-approved for about $560,000, and that's what I wanted to know initially, right? How much can I afford? What is my ceiling? We got that ceiling down. The interest rate was changing every day, is what she was saying, and so we couldn't lock down an interest rate, but we just said 3.5%, just to be slightly conservative. And my demographic of homes that I was looking for, right, the filters, it had to be a 3-family, no 2 families, just a 3-family. And I was using an FHA loan. So as we know, as house hackers ourselves who have used FHA loans, we have to be very careful about which homes we select, because there's a separate inspector that comes by and reviews it. So not any home will be approved for the FHA loan. That was the criteria. In addition to the 70% rule, where rents will have to be like the mortgage would have to equal 70% of what you could collect in rent.
Yep.
And for my FHA loan, we used projected rents. So it wasn't current rents that we were looking at, it was projected rents. So the mortgage that I would have to pay, that we would have to calculate based on our values, that would have to make up 70% of at least a maximum of what I would be. Another criteria, as you know, Kyle, was that one unit had to be unoccupied, right? You used a different approach than I did, but I made sure that at least one was unoccupied. But hey, you know me, I was injured, I have time. And if I could purchase a property, but I was perfect, I was golden. And so, let's see, are there any other logistical details? I was looking for properties, 3 families, right, in between Gardner and Boston. That was my goal. Nothing past Worcester, nothing east of Worcester, nothing south or north, just in between.
Mm-hmm.
I was quickly humbled by the market because, the saying goes, beggars can't be choosers. And eventually I just got priced out as interest rates began to rise, right? Properties just became a little bit more expensive, and my ceiling stayed the same. But these buildings, they just got more expensive. So I was forced to reevaluate. I was opening up my pool to properties north of Worcester, south of Worcester, east of Worcester, just because I was so willing to get into the market. That was my goal. I didn't care what it looked like. I just wanted to pass the FHA loan, and I wanted to get in the game at any means necessary. So after 4 months, countless weekends, right, of showing up to open houses, crutches in arm, a cast, a boot on my foot, walking through the entire building, running the numbers with my loan officer, and several rejected offers, I got smarter about how to craft a good offer. And so the moment came where I put a good offer in place after learning from my mistakes, and it got accepted. And that's the house that I would be living in now if I wasn't, injured and at home.
Wow. That's nuts, man. No, I totally agree. And especially you made a couple very, very big points too, especially about the FHA self-sufficiency, where
Yes.
the rents have to be, I believe it's 75%, I'm pretty
Gotcha.
sure. But yeah, it's a really interesting, I guess, I want to say curveball, but it is more of a safety technically, for the bank or whatever. But it's really interesting, because, we hear from all over the place, oh, you only need 3.5% down, FHA, you can do that everywhere. But in some cases, man, depending on the market, if you're going, a heck of a lot closer to Boston or in Boston, it might be very, very difficult to kind of, reach that self-sufficiency. And I don't do a whole lot in Boston at all as an agent, so I'm not too sure, but it might be extremely difficult to be able to make that FHA loan work, in a kind of case like that with purchase prices and the forecasted rents and everything. And the other side of that equation too with the FHA is, having the the safety and everything get passed. You know, making sure like there's no like chip and paint or anything, and like all the handrails are good, and like yeah, exactly. You know, and it's definitely. I feel like honestly, man, like I mean, just as much as you, man. Like I love the program. Like it has definitely served me well. You know, at the end of the day, like, you know, a ton of other people out there. But like I feel like a couple of the things that maybe aren't really as talked about with FHA are the self-sufficiency and the you know, a lot of like the safety kind of stuff. Because I mean, yeah, like, you know, that's great that like you only need, you know, 3.5% down plus closing costs, but also like it still has to meet a couple guidelines as well. You know,
yeah,
like
and if there's one more,
like, yeah,
yeah, if there's one more thing I can add to that, it's the fact that you can't use it. It's hard for you to. I'm not. I want to be careful with my words, but it's very difficult for you to use it multiple times, right? Especially in the same area, because the underwriters who officially, you know, put it in paper or do what the underwriters do. I don't know specifically. I just know that they're a major part of you executing on that loan. They don't want investors using it as a vehicle for like investment properties, right? And so if I were to try to use it again after refinancing out of my current FHA loan in Gardner, I would run into a lot of hurdles in doing so because I may not have a good reason to buy another property in the same area with that same loan because I'm no longer a first-time home buyer. And that would be the struggle. So unless I had a really good reason to, I would run into a lot of difficulty in trying to use it again.
Yeah. You know, it's a really interesting animal, man, too, because like depending on like I've heard stories of like people mixing, you know, like a 5% down conventional loan and like, you know, like using FHA originally and then like refining out of that, you know, into the conventional to be able to use the FHA again, or like, you know, just using the conventional somewhere else in addition to the FHA. Like it's a really interesting game, you know, and to your point, man, like especially like the area that you're in and everything. And like, you know, if you're able to kind of provide like a suitable reason to the bank of like, oh, hey, you know, it's like, here's like, I have a 3-family with FHA, like, you know, but like, I want to buy this 2-family, you know, because it's closer to work or like closer to my family or, you know, whatever the case is. And I've definitely heard stories of like it working out and like, it's really interesting, like how you can play your cards with like these different kinds of loans and like the, you know, making sure everything kind of overlaps with each other. And I've heard a couple stories of a couple people local to our neck of the woods actually growing like pretty quickly, you know, off of leveraging like, oh, like here's a 4-family with FHA. The next year, maybe buying like a 3-family with like a 5% conventional. So there's like 4, 5, 6, 7 units right there. And then maybe like, you know, refining out of FHA like the year after or something and like just kind of scaling up like really fast. And it's cool. But yeah, no, you're totally right, man. You know, it's definitely something that I feel like you kind of have to give some thought to and like really strategize with it, you know, to kind of like keep growing in the short term.
Yeah.
Like to kind of keep getting more units and utilizing like the low down payment loans. But it is extremely, extremely cool stuff, man. And
Agreed.
one thing too, man, I definitely related to something you said about kind of having to like reevaluate too, like when you were looking and everything, and kind of like keeping the criteria like pretty open in terms of like location. Cause like I started in looking in Lowell, and I very quickly got priced out of Lowell like ridiculously fast. Like I had there was a 9-bedroom 3-family in Lowell that I had under contract for like $612,000, and literally like the entire building was falling apart. And like I didn't know what I didn't know at that point, and like I learned so much from that entire experience and the inspection and everything. But what I realized, man, was like, you know, I really, really dig like the 3 to 4 unit buildings, but this price point that I have doesn't support it in Lowell. You know, so it kind of started to push me out, you know, like further west, and I was able to, you know, find what I was looking for, like kind of the more west you go, you know. And That's definitely a really cool coincidence too, man, with the like the student loans kind of like being on hold and like kind of being able to like bag money like that. Like that's cool, man. Like wow. So
Yeah.
like how did that kind of go? Like cuz I wasn't too familiar with it, but did they as soon as like COVID was, kind of like running rampant and everything and like everything was shutting down and stuff. Like did they just kind of like put a hold on like having to pay like college loans and stuff for a while or
Yes. So I think the proper term is called forbearance,
gotcha.
and basically meaning that your loan payments are on pause. Because if you are a student in higher education, your loan payments automatically start after you graduate.
Gotcha.
Um, and so my loans would have technically started in January 2021, but loans were being the forbearance and loans were being extended, and they were getting pushed back and back and back until January 2023. But before then, we didn't really know that. All I knew was that I didn't have to pay for another several months.
Yeah.
So until I had to pay, I didn't really have to, I knew I didn't have to think about it until that month or that time came, and I would worry about it after and figure out a plan,
Yeah.
in terms of how much I'd have to pay monthly. But present day, I still have the excess of cash, right? And so it gave me a lot more time than I would have had if we weren't in a pandemic and my loans weren't on pause, because now I have the cash I would have had later.
Hmm.
And this was a smarter decision anyway, right? I think we can both agree on that, because
Definitely.
now it's going towards an asset that can help me pay down my loans. And that was the initial goal, man. Like if I could get a property before I had to start paying my loans and before I recovered, then it can not only pay down my loans, but I could also be living in it and then getting back into training after I've recovered.
It's such a beautiful thing, man. Like especially to your point, you know what I mean? Like if you're able to like that's the thing that I absolutely love about multifamily, man. Like especially like, 3 units and up where like you can actually cash flow like while you're owner occupying
Hmm.
is like even if it's only like a couple $100 or something like that, man, like that, plus you're living for free. Like who knows, man? Like maybe I mean like I'm not sure kind of what the figures look like, but man, say like, the payment for like your student loans was like X, but like the cash flow from the property was like also X. So like in a way, like your tenants are paying back your student loans like while you're living for free. Like
And you're
depending
building
on
equity. Yeah.
yeah. Like that's like the craziest stuff in the world, man. That's nuts. Like like
Hmm. And
yeah,
we're
and
only scratching the surface, right, in terms of
exactly.
what we can do with this.
You're right. And
So
the cool thing is too, man, is like I feel like everything happens for a reason. So like that was like meant to be that like all the stars aligned and like everything was together and like that was like meant to happen to you like that. And like that's like the like I like to think about that kind of thing, because like sometimes like when you're in the moment, like in like whether it's situations that are extremely good or some that maybe aren't so fortunate, like depending on kind of how you look at it, like I feel like everything might kind of happen for a reason. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like it just like not trying to like get all like outside the box and everything, but like
sure.
you know what I mean? Like
I,
yeah,
I do think it was a really good example of a situation where you made something great out of your unfortunate situation.
yeah,
Because Achilles torn, people say that's a career-ending injury. I could have just sat there for those 4 months and just recovered, relaxed, did nothing, right? And I love this saying. Apparently, it's by Abraham Lincoln. I don't know if I believe it. The saying goes, "Good things come to those who wait, but only the things that are left over by those who hustle."
I've
Right?
never heard the second part, man. That's
So that's the thing. I'm not a proponent of everything happens for a reason, because for me, that's kind of like slapping a label on things that did work out, putting a label on it,
yeah,
as opposed to, you being the one to create your own luck and making that happen.
yeah.
Whereas if you say, if everything happens for a reason, you kind of disregard the actions that you may have put in place to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, man. Yeah, I definitely agree. I forget there was a quote too. I don't know who said it. I'm probably gonna butcher it, but
I might know it.
You probably do, man. It was what is it? I think like the harder you work, the luckier you get, or like something like that. I forget.
Yeah.
Like somebody said it. Like it was like something like that. I probably butchered the crap out of it, but it was like something like that. You know.
Yeah. I do know that quote. I don't know who said it either.
We could probably just say Abraham Lincoln.
Sure. Yeah, it's Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
Sounds good. Why
Yeah.
not? So, my man, I wanted to ask you. So, what is kind of your like your drive and your vision for the long term? You know, like with real estate, with everything. You know.
Yeah. So I would love to build right. Would love to build a solid portfolio by my age is my like age of they say it takes 10,000 hours before you fully master something, and I like to think that we are putting in those hours now.
Yeah.
Diversity. So I value geography, right? Different states, different cities, different towns, different countries, right? 2 families, 3 families, 4 families, single families, condos, and eventually like large apartment complexes, diverse lease terms, short-term rentals and long-term rentals, and maybe even like medium-term rentals, like in the sweet spot
Mm-hmm.
in between. Goals right now, or I guess for the future, is my parents immigrated from Vietnam in the 90s, and the house that my dad grew up in with his siblings and my grandfather and my grandmother, it was given to my dad's youngest sibling, his half brother. His half brother actually sold that house that my dad grew up in, and so I don't know the address right now. I don't know how much it's valued at, but one day I hope to buy back that house by any means necessary. I don't have the financial means to do so, but once I'm in a position where I am able to, I hope to acquire that property back and keep it in-house.
Wow, that's super cool, man. I love that so much.
Mm-hmm. So
That's
I think it would just mean a lot. And I think I would really feel like I've made it once I'd done that.
Yeah. That's the coolest thing in the world, man. Like I'm just trying to like imagine, you know, like just like the look on like your dad's face, like, oh hey, like look what I bought.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
like, oh, look familiar, huh? You know, like wow. That's beautiful, man. Like that's like I love that type of thing. Like especially, you know, like when people have those kind of goals that are like so sentimental and
Mm-hmm.
like it's so real, man. It's nuts.
Yeah. And another thing, man, we were talking earlier about the peak of the iceberg, right? Like leveraging real estate, having it pay off your loans, among other things.
Yep.
One other thing in the short term that I'm looking to figure out within these 10,000 hours that we're putting in is understanding how to burr a property, right? Like really understanding how to rehab a property, because I think that's when we get to break into the iceberg and get down to like a deeper level.
Yeah.
Because I think to be able to know to understand how to create value out of like dirt, out of something really, really bad,
Yep.
and then turning it into something beautiful, refinancing out of it, pulling out all of the cash you put into it. I think that's just such a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And I would consider myself a beginner right now because I didn't do that, right? I just used the FHA loan. But once I know how to burst something, that's the next thing I'm focused on, because that's how I think I can effectively scale. It's just buying these broken down properties and then like burning it back to life.
Yeah.
I think that's key, and I think that's more sustainable to building my portfolio faster rather than just buying fairly turnkey properties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree, man. Like that, the skill of like rehabbing, like I totally agree with you, man. Like I was kind of in the same boat, you know, like I got like had like an idea of like a couple things that like I needed to pay for and like got quotes and whatever. But like, I feel like having that eye to like just be able to look at stuff and be like,
Yeah.
oh, well, like, you know, that bathroom's going to be like $6,000 to reno. That's going to be like $3,000 to fix that. Like, you know, and just kind of being able to have like the vision, you know what I mean? Of being
Yeah.
able to to just like see the value and like, like look at a purchase price, like look at the situation that you have. Like, oh, it'll be like, $6,000 for like an electrical panel. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful thing. And like, I feel like not a lot of people, really like have something like that. Right. And like,
Hmm.
especially like, I wonder if that's kind of one of those things that like over years and years of like, trading properties and like, being different parts of deals and everything, like you're just going to kind of pick up from over time. But like the thing too that kind of came to my mind, man, was I wonder like basically the value that could be created if I mean obviously, like learning as much as you can about like that type of thing is absolutely key. But I feel like the if you were able to kind of like network your way there as well, you know what I mean, and like kind of meet the people who could maybe be interested in like partnering on a deal with you, and like you know what I mean, like if they
Hmm.
had like a lot of that type of knowledge already, like 10, 20, like 30 years of experience, like doing that type of thing all the time, mixed with like the vision of what this property needs to be, what the numbers look like, and like like almost kind of like implementing like a really valuable individual like that has that knowledge already, and then just kind of making like crazy value and then like splitting it, you know what I mean, like
I know exactly what you're saying. It's like what you're describing is one of the things, one of my core philosophies, right? And it's that there are other ways in besides the front door.
ah,
And what we are on the same wavelength about is, maybe entering through the front door is um, accumulating several properties in your portfolio and then learning how to rehab a property through all these different individual experiences you have. Whereas entering through like a window or the back door or the basement is meeting different people who have done so already and learning from them either actively by shadowing them or working with them in a deal. And then to your point, separating once you feel like you have that eye, right? And you understand what it is, how much it costs to fix XYZ, what materials you may need,
mhm.
or who you might need to call.
Exactly. And that's something that I've been very obsessed with for a while, man, is like basically because it's really interesting because, like when it comes to, I mean, say even like, buying like a property you want to flip or like buying like a buy and hold, like if you think about it, man, like there's roles out there and like companies for like every single portion of that deal that you would need. Like just like totally theoretically speaking, right? Like if you needed like a whole entire property painted inside, outside, like there's a company for that. Like if you have like a ridiculous amount of like mold or like mice or like whatever that is, there's companies for like literally like all of those things, and like it's almost like it's I don't know, it's really interesting, man, because like you can kind of create that team and like kind of like put in the pieces and everything, and like it's something that I think about often actually, is like what's the actual thing that like you want to like put those 10,000 hours towards in like try and like master like for you. You know what I mean? Like, is it like kind of creating the team of people who can like do a lot of that type of stuff, or like maybe kind of like being the visionary for the project and like just like having like a really hands on like learning as much as you can, because like it's and I don't know, man, like it's just kind of this concept of like
Playing to your strengths.
exactly, and like what's like the smallest thing that like if you put like all of your time and your vision and everything towards that and like delegate out everything else, like what does that look like, like if it's like you know like people like find deals for you or whatever, and like you're the one where like your like prime strategy is to have the team built and like have the communication, and like the
Mm,
GC can run his thing and like manage all the contractors, and like the attorney does their thing, and and like you're kind of like orchestrating like this big like next level like project,
yeah,
you know
yeah.
it's I don't know, I think about something like that often, like what's the actual like part of the deal, like do I want to like really focus in on and like be good at that part? You know, because like the carpenters like kick ass at carpentry, hopefully.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
You know, like the plumbers kill it at plumbing, right?
yeah.
Like what's the kind of role that like you want to fulfill, you know?
Yeah, is that a rhetorical question or is that a
Probably. You can
yeah.
take a stab at it if you want, but I'm not really sure where I was going with that, to be honest.
No, I think I think it's a very important question. Like, where do you want to put your time,
Yeah,
right? Because there are these people that you've named, plumbers and carpenters, who have their own strengths that, with you who spent the same amount of time that they did understanding their craft, it wouldn't make sense for you to try to make up that lost time because
exactly.
it's better spent elsewhere. And your question is, where is that elsewhere? Where is my time better spent?
Yep.
Um, and as you know, it's unique to every individual and their goals. My goal, I don't want to be known as a real estate investor. I don't want to have a large scale operation. And so my goal would not to, um, I guess, grow an operation large enough for me to outsource a lot of work to different people.
Yep.
My goal specifically, I don't know what my number is in terms of how much income I want to make on a monthly basis in terms of passive income. And I don't know what the number is in terms of properties I want to have. But for me, I think I found where that elsewhere is. And that elsewhere is, again, understanding how to rehab, walking through a building and understanding what materials is needed and the type of person that I need to call, the type of profession I need to call. And I mean, if I could estimate the cost, that would be great. But one thing that's a strength, and this is sort of like a tangent, I won't be on it for very long.
That's okay. Go nuts.
A strength that I've developed myself and have come to value is, generally speaking, I usually always know what I want and also what I need to know next.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm very keen and I'm very focused on that. Though that idea of building that eye to identify what material is needed and who to call to fix it, that's what I'm intentional and focused on next. So I'm not focused on like learning the skill. I'm learning about who do I call and what do I need.
Yeah.
And I think that will lead me to my next stage in becoming a more seasoned investor.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, works with my goal in that I don't see this as being a long-term thing for me. I don't see myself spending my entire life becoming an investor.
Yeah. I love that, man, honestly. Because to your point, like every single person has like a different vision like that. And I think that's super cool, man. Like, especially like just to kind of like really dig deep and have that like rehab type of knowledge and just be able to see the value, where others might not be able to, and be able to like just capitalize on the opportunity and run with it.
Yeah. Do you know where your elsewhere is? Like, where would you want to put like your 10,000 hours?
Um,
And it doesn't have to be one place. 10,000 hours is a lot of time. So you just pick like one place and then.
Honestly, man, like I've been pretty obsessed with kind of like raising capital for a while. And, like it hasn't really like I'm in like the very 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 early stages of it, like just listening to podcasts for the first time type of thing.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, I think it's a lot of fun, man, because like I really enjoy like having conversations like these and like just like hearing everybody's story and networking. Like that's the thing that I have realized over the past couple of years that gets me the most fired up, like on a daily basis, is like just having fun, like learning with each other and everything. Like that's what I love, man, And
Yeah.
the vision that I kind of have is, just kind of having this like, like raising capital, like type of role and like partnering with different people and like different projects. And like, that's the type of thing that kind of makes my ears perk up, is like, I just want to, pretty much like, put value into a property and then like, maybe a couple years later, like take it out and then put it into like 2 other projects and like just kind of scale up that way. That's something that I'm definitely extremely interested in, and just kind of like leveraging equity and putting it in different places with different people and just kind of learning the whole time, and That's kind of what I envision for myself, to be honest, man. Like I really like the concept, you know.
Yeah, I actually have experience with raising capital. I had to raise capital 4,000 to publish my book.
Oh, really?
Um,
Oh, damn.
I have, but um, I don't. It's a challenge, you know, and it's there are hurdles that you have to get across. But I I don't wish it upon anybody who um who's looking to sell something out of it, because I was trying to, you know, fund case your financing is different, right? Because you're promising a return.
Hmm. So it did unfortunately
I'm
cut out.
asking in that sense and different, but that's a side note.
That's great, man. Yeah, it did cut out a little bit in there, unfortunately. So if you could just kind of like go through like the past like 10 seconds again. I'm so sorry, man. My internet is crap. But like basically like what you were talking about was, you know, like how you had to raise 4 grand for like, you know, your book and everything, and kind of like some of the facets that went into that.
Yeah, so I had to raise the $4,000 to cover the book publishing costs, right? This included cover design, copy editing, and then getting it sent out to various retailers like Walmart, Barnes and Noble, and a bunch of other places. And I wanna quickly say that that type of fundraising is different from the one that you're going into, because I was essentially asking my friends and family to fund my dreams, paying pre-ordering my book for $39. No book costs or should cost $39. Um, but you're promising value, right? A return. And for me, it took me 3 or a little over 2 months to raise that full $4,000,
Yeah.
selling enough copies of my book, and really trying to, I guess, convince my friends and family that this is something that was really meaningful to me.
Hmm.
It just the 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 rationale between both of our individual fundraising journeys are going to be different. But I just want to say that it was an interesting and it was a long and difficult journey, and I definitely learned a lot about myself in that process, learning how to ask for help and not being conservative in my approach, because you know, once you start fundraising, you'll understand and learn how many people you've met in your entire life, how many people you have to reach out to.
Yeah.
And of course, depending on how much you're looking to request from each individual person, your pool might like slim, but you know, it's still a cool activity to do.
It sounds like a lot of fun, man. And I really like what you said about, you know, kind of when you were doing that, like the amount that you learned about yourself and like your relationships and like kind of the self awareness of like, you know, like your place and like all the people that you've met in the past, and like that's cool. You know,
Yeah.
that's definitely something that I am excited about. Um, you know, for whenever that kind of happens, you know, it's like I kind of picture, and I'm kind of curious, you know, what your thoughts on this are, man, because like you've been there, but like what I kind of picture like when doing this is a lot of like, you know, one-on-one like type of like coffee shop kind of conversations, and like, you know, presenting an opportunity and like
Hmm.
shooting the breeze about it. Like that's kind of what I picture from like a 10,000 foot view, but I don't know what that looks like yet. So how did that kind of go for you, man? Especially with like friends and family too. That's definitely something I want to get into in a minute.
Yeah, because I was raising like a smaller sum of money than what you would be raising for. It
Hmm.
wasn't like those intimate one-on-one conversations. Some were,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it was mass texting, mass
Oh.
emailing,
Yep.
because I was only looking to raise either between $15 and $39
Yeah.
from each individual person. And because it wasn't a significant sum of money, I thought it just warranted, you know, a brief description of what I'm working on, a link to my Indiegogo, and then me just asking them if they would be interested in supporting me. So there was less at stake in terms of how much they were going to give up to help me in that sense.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's cool though, man. Like, so how was that kind of like the first time around? Like what was kind of going through your head when whoever it was like, oh, you know, you have to raise like 4 grand, like to make this thing happen. Like, what were you kind of thinking about?
It was a very stressful time in my life, because I was actually studying in San Francisco for a semester at the time. So I was in San Francisco.
Wow.
I had a part-time internship at the time. I was I was a full-time student there as well. I was taking classes and I was working on uh, one big consulting project that took up most of my time. And then, halfway through my journey of fundraising, I learned that my grandfather had passed away. And so it was just an emotional roller coaster because I had at the end of month one, I'd raised like $1,900, $1,700,
Yeah.
and all these things going on, and I'm stressed out. Um, I have to fly from NorCal to SoCal for the funeral,
Yeah.
and like I don't know what I'm gonna do. I have another $2,100 to raise. I feel like I've asked enough people. Like I already feel like a burden because unlike what you're proposing, this is not going to be an opportunity for you really, right? You're getting a book in exchange. Um, it's just it was easily one of the most troubling or difficult times of my life.
Yeah.
And it ended up working out because I saw my family and they realized I was fundraising, and so they offered to help me out, which boosted my campaign further and got me closer to my goal.
Hmm.
But the amount of pressure that was on my shoulders then, because of things that were outside of my control, it was, enormous to say the least.
I can just imagine, man. Like those kind of periods where like you just have so much going on and like you just feel like you're getting absolutely crushed are definitely troubling times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But
So
whenever you're ready, would love to like learn more about your conversation. I build presentation decks for a living. That's like my occupation, and so presenting it as an opportunity, that's my bread and butter, right? Putting together proposal decks for potential clients and offering them a means to, and in this case, it would be offering an extra return on the capital they're investing in you, right?
wow. That's crazy, man. That's awesome. Wow. So, man, when it came to cuz I was curious. So, what was your book about, man? I'm extremely interested in your book.
Great question. My book, it was about young entrepreneurs. That's who I wrote about, but the book is kind of evident by its title. The title is "Who's Doing It."
Nice.
Like who is really going out there and pursuing something that they are passionate about. Who we I like to believe that when we are born, we were all, and if you're into poker, if you're into like casinos, you call that a hand, right? We're all born with like a hand, a set of cards. There are two types of people, right? Those who accept the hand and those who reject the hand and ask for a reshuffle, or reject the hand and get new cards, or continue to draw new cards, right? And I see these cards as your life. You can either accept it as it is and be bitter about it, or you can go out and create something new out of it and follow this untraditional, unorthodox path. And very easily, every single person, every young entrepreneur that I interviewed in that book rejected that hand and went on to create or do something completely amazing in their own local community. And I encouraged everybody to find their it in the book, right? And their it is, what is it? Like, what do you want to do? What it is that you're passionate about? And I encourage everyone to go out and find that so that they can effectively reject that hand and do something that's happy for them. Of course, easier said than done, but it's something that I try to live by even now. You can, like, if you look at my professional profile, there's a ton of different things on there, right? And it's because I'm always pursuing a new interest. I'm always trying something new. And in my particular case right now, like I pursued American Ninja Warrior because it was personal to me and it was a goal of mine. I ended up tearing an Achilles and my ACL over it. Hindsight, maybe I should have trained smarter, but I don't regret it in that I was pursuing I was pursuing something I was interested in, I was living the message of my book. And after I'm recovered, I'm going to try something new, and I'm going to continually try something new because I don't want to be put in like a box. I'm not just XYZ. I am more, and we can all be more. You just gotta have the courage to pursue it and see it through.
I love that, man. To your point, there was a quote that I saw on Facebook a while ago, and it was either be bitter or be better. And I feel like that
I
ties
like
in
that.
really well. I don't know who said it. Let's say Abraham Lincoln, just for just 'cause why not?
Yeah.
Probably. But yeah, man, like I feel like that ties in extremely well with what you were just mentioning, like and the cards. I love the way you worded that, man, like and painted the picture. Like that was awesome. I like that a lot. But you're totally right though, and I think there's an infinite amount of value in just tasting as many things as you can and like trying different activities and like you know what, man, because like when we're like 90 years old and like you don't have the ability to like try out a lot of these things anymore,
Mm.
like what are you gonna do then? You know,
Yeah.
like if you like never tried. Actually, I don't know if you know of the guy Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So he I want to say it was him. It's coming to my mind, but like, oh, like how are you supposed to know that you like shrimp if you've never tried shrimp before? Like how do you know you like pizza if you've never had pizza? Like, like you just gotta like just try it, like shoot your shot, like just taste things. And yeah, like there's some stuff that you'll absolutely hate, like, but you tried it and now you have that
Mhm.
information. And there's other things that you might surprise the crap out of yourself that like you actually really, really enjoy. And I feel like even like real estate aside, man, like just like life, like you never know, like you could like absolutely fall in love with like foosball, and like
Yeah.
who knows, like it
Yeah.
just you never know, and if you're always like open to experimenting and trying different activities and you never know what's gonna happen, like you're gonna pivot the way that the way that it was meant for you to go and like trying different things. And yeah, man, it's such a beautiful thing, just to make sure like you're always like tasting as much as you can and like just trying things. Because like if you're just like that box, I like the way you phrase that too. Like if you're just like this character, like whatever that is, like
One dimensional.
it one dimensional, exactly, like
Yeah.
that's it, like but like there's so much more to life, man. Like for
So
everybody.
much more. Yeah, I agree. You gotta live.
You
And
do.
yeah,
Yep. I totally agree, man.
we
110%.
just connected
We did.
on that wavelength. Yeah.
I think we just became best friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got a question for you, man, that I always like to ask everybody that comes on. That question being, how do you define wealth?
I was prepared for this question. Um, Partly because you sent me the questions ahead of time, and partly because it's in your title, your podcast title. Um,
Fair enough.
so I think I would define wealth in two ways. So in two words as passive income, in a longer form statement as the financial position of not having to actively work for your dollar. Alternatively, synonymously, the state of being where your living expenses are covered by your assets. Right. I really think that's really what wealth is, because the difference between what I just shared as in a definition from being rich is rich being a large lump sum of money that you have right here. And we'll just say that we'll assume that it's growing because it's in a bank and it's collecting interest. Whereas it's the same amount coming into your bank account every week. And they're given to you by your assets. Just we like there's really, I don't want to overcomplicate it. I don't want to. That's my definition of wealth right there.
No, I like it a lot, man. I do. And like especially like the thing that's cool too is from a lot of the stories like that you tend to hear like in this kind of space of like once the the financial part, starts to become, less of an issue, I guess you could say. Like now, all of a sudden, like your time freedom opens up, and like, if you have more time, like that gives you more time to like taste different things and different activities, like kind of looping back. And then, like now all of a sudden, like you might be able to exercise every single day. And like, it's like, just like the balance and like it's so cool, man. Cause like, it's so much bigger than like just the money, it's almost like what comes from like the back end of that, you know what I mean? And just like being able to live like the way that you desire to, and yeah.
Yeah, and there was a thought that just came to mind as you mentioned that. It's like it's being rich is almost, in my opinion, like an older, more traditional form of being working, right? We work every single day and we build up our savings and we put enough into our retirement so that when we reach a certain age, we have an amount of money, a lump sum of money to fall back on. Whereas, if you're working to become wealthy, sort of like a new contemporary type of thinking mindset, you're working, and as you're working in your younger years, you're building assets. And so, yes, you are creating something. You're creating wealth for when you retire, and so you can fall back on it. But you're being a lot more active than if you were to just work and put X amount of money towards savings and your retirement. So you're at the end of the day, you're still working, but you're being a little smarter in terms of where you're putting these funds.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, man. Like it's just kind of being more intentional.
Yeah.
Like, so doing the same repetitions as everybody else at the moment, but having a different intention of what you're actually doing with like the cause of why you're kind of doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't blame
We're there. Like we're the same.
We got that connection going on.
Yeah.
I got you, Johnny. Dude, like it's funny because like I was talking to one of the guys that I work with yesterday. Like we were looking at our so at my day job we have like a TSP. It's pretty much like a 401k or whatever, like type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about it because I've been with the company that I'm with now for like 3 years, and there's probably like there's not much by any means. There's maybe like 10 grand or something like that in this like 401k thing. And I was telling him because the guy that I work with actually has a 3 family in New Hampshire. So like he kind of, to some degree understands, I guess, like where I was coming from with what I'm about to say. And I told him, I'm like, dude, honestly, like I've thought about literally like just yanking all the money out of here and like, getting slapped around with like the
fees.
Yeah, like the prepay. Yeah, like the, taking the money out too early, fees and everything, just to have control over that. Like, because like, I don't want to just leave it in a 401k, type of account and like have somebody else take care of it. Like, no, like, I want to have control over my destiny. And like I want to like, I want that to be my responsibility. Like if I fail or not, like, I don't want to just like, kind of leave it there and hope for the best. And I feel like that's something that I wish that conversation was had a lot more often, man, like just in general. And I mean, like, I know everybody's different and like, not everybody is going to want to like, have responsibility like that in their lives and like, growing their assets on their own terms and everything and like kind of, like working at it and everything. But at least to just kind of be presented as an option of like, oh, like, you could, keep your money in like a 401k and like it's subject to market fluctuation and everything, like most other assets are. But like it's just kind of a set it and forget it, which for some people, like totally cool. Like that's great. It might take you years and years and years, for it to kind of accrue and everything. But also like there's this other thing that like if you maybe like took that out or like kind of built it up in a different way, like you can actually have a lot more control and over like what actually happens to that, like that's the cool thing with real estate too, man, is like definitely the creativity of like two people can walk up to a building and think like two completely separate things, have to like two completely separate plans, like cash on cash, like looks different for both of them and like completely separate strategies, but the both of them can still work extremely well. And like, it's control and like being harnessed in two different ways. And who knows the possibilities, and instead of kind of, just kind of leaving it there and hoping for the best and kind of having somebody else take control of it. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Here's another angle from looking at it, because I thought of the same way.
Yeah.
When I started working, I was intentional about what my allocation was going to be in terms of the money that I would save after all of the expenses that I had.
Yep.
How much was it going to be towards real estate? How much is it going to be put in a high yield savings account, and how much of it would be put into my Roth IRA or my personal savings account or my personal investing account? And what ended up happening was it worked out. A significant sum was to get delegated towards real estate.
Yep.
And then when it came time for me to speak to my loan officer, she had to assess like my collateral, right? Like, do I have enough saved elsewhere in case this deal falls through? And we were able to look towards my other, accounts. And so my Roth IRA came up and my 401k came up, and they're like, do you have X amount saved elsewhere? And all these accounts, because I've been contributing to these for several years. And also, you look into the details of your 401k or your Roth IRA. You can also pull that money out under the right circumstances. If it's for a first-time home purchase, or if there are certain situations where you're qualified to take it out, and that's how I see it. My Roth IRA and emergency fund, because I'd imagine that in the span of time it takes for me to withdraw that, it was probably put on credit, right? So I have some time before I need to pay it off. And so I'll take whatever time I have, pull it out of, because it fits, it's an emergency, and then pay it off there. So there are ways for you to strategically leverage it, but I hear what you're saying in that money may be better spent elsewhere. Had you know something?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, man. And like that's a really cool tip too, is like if you have, like some of those other accounts, like a Roth or a 401k or like just a little bit of liquid cash, whatever it is, like if you go and you buy a property, like that stuff specifically can be used as reserves. And like that was something that I thought was wicked cool, man. I was like, oh crap, like, does this have to be like completely liquid? Like that's another like $9,000 or something. I'm like, oh my goodness, like the world's falling. But they're like, no, like just, like give me your like account number and stuff like that, and we'll check it out and we'll be all right. Like you're good.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Totally, man. So Johnny, my last question for you, my friend, is do you read, and what is your favorite business, investing, or real estate book that you would recommend to anyone? Or it could be like anything, like podcasts, like YouTube, like anything at all.
I do have an answer to that, but I think I have a much more interesting answer to another question you have.
Sure.
And that question would be, what is the most important lesson that you've learned over your career?
Perfect. Let's do it.
You wouldn't mind if we switch questions?
100%. Go for it.
Okay. So in my short career, since I've become a, full-time working professional, I will preface this by saying, depending on your goals and personal nature, this may not be applicable to you.
Mm-hmm.
But this is my lesson. I'm a big proponent of taking your accomplishments and shouting it from like the mountaintop, right? Self-promotion. No one else is going to do it for you because you're likely not a celebrity and you don't have someone working in PR for you. And when you do this, when you shout your accomplishments from the mountaintop, you have to do it in a way for people to care. You don't want to do it obnoxiously, right? Because people will think you're a snob. So along the same vein, it's about serendipity, which means unexpected good luck. But nonetheless, creating serendipity, creating your luck. What I mean by that is the more people that know you and know what you're about, the more they will associate you with the things they come across. Right. So by continuing to shout out your accomplishments from the mountaintop, you're constantly reminding the people in your life, in your network, about you. And so maybe 10% will decide to take action and tell you about what it is they came across that reminded them of you, and that's you creating your own luck, right? You're constantly like there in their face, so that, when they make that connection with you, it creates an entirely new opportunity for you. You may consider that luck, but from the outside looking in, no, like you did that yourself. And to create your own luck, you need to do that. But you also need people looking out for you, either advertently, which is a very small few, or inadvertently. And that's you reminding people. Right. And it's worked out for me in several ways. Right. And it's being active on social media. It's being active on media channels.
Yeah.
And it's also being active like as an individual, going out there into the world, meeting new people, sparking conversations when you can, and making sure that when you're meeting people out in the street or wherever you are, for me, it's my gym sauna. Making that connection and then like looping them into your connection. I don't want this to be a one-off chance that we see each other. Like, let's get connected somehow, Instagram or LinkedIn or your phone number at the very least.
Yeah.
That way you're officially part of the network, welcome in. And now we have a means of communication to each other. Right. And if, texting is great, it's not ideal. If we're on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, like that would be more ideal, because that way, if we're connected, you see what I like, you see what I comment. And that way, you're reminded of me as opposed to texting. You only know of me when I talk to you.
Yeah.
So that's really key, man. Self-promotion is the biggest thing.
That's genius, man. Holy crap. And yeah, like literally like looping back to earlier in the interview, man, like when you were talking about like, first like, putting everything out there that you were doing, and then the professor from down south like saw that and like it like, got you into this program that like totally changed your life, and like the proof is in the pudding. Like
Yeah.
It's right there, like it's wow. That's super valuable, man.
Yeah.
And especially the thing with the sauna still blows my mind, man. Like literally like
Yeah. Yeah. And the bigger story, the bigger message there is shared group activities, classes, things you find joy out of. Like, is there a class for that? And just meeting people in those class, because when you're not bound by like a larger institution of like school, it becomes significantly harder to meet people, because now you have nothing to connect you to a stranger. Before it was, oh, like, what class are you in? Or, do you want to get lunch together at the school cafeteria?
yeah.
Right now, it's, it's those classes that you got to leverage, because now you have something in common. And in the sauna, we may not have anything in common, but typically, if you know how to use a sauna, you have to be in there for 15 minutes to get the maximum amount of recovery. Usually people aren't talking about much, so you try to make time, or you try to make something out of, share time together. It's a great way to meet people and do two things at once: recover and also make a new friend.
That's perfect, man. I love that. Yeah. No, totally, man. And like
So
I really
quick
like
little life hack.
huge life hack. I really like what you said too, man, about the what was it? I just lost it. Like the icebreakers. You know what I mean? Like if, like you're in school and everything, like you said, like, oh, like what class are you in? Like there's a lot to like talk about, because like there's that direct like relationship like between like everyone that's in that particular class or whatever it may be. So like there is like something there to be able to like base a conversation off of. But as soon as you get out into the world and everything, it's like, oh crap, like what is that? And like you almost have to create that icebreaker and just kind of like, find that spot to connect, to be able to like start those relationships and everything. And it's definitely interesting too with, you know, social media, man. Like social media has definitely been an absolute game changer for me, man. Like just in general, like it's something that I try and like tell as many people as I can is like, you know, if you go on to like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Biggerpockets, and like, you know, just exactly like you said, like just put yourself out there, like tell people what you're doing, what you're talking about. Like you never know, you know, who's going to come out of the woodwork and like the people that you can meet. And like you never know who's like the next door neighbor that's like into the same exact thing that you are, you know, and like you don't know until you know. And the more conversations you have with the more people, like the more things just start to happen. And it's, you never know, like the opportunities that can present themselves.
You're right. You know, going back to that point about serendipity, you're just rolling the dice again,
Yep.
right? And just hoping that the probability will work out in your favor. And if not, you just continue to roll the dice.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it definitely can't hurt by any means.
Right.
You know, because like you might be benefiting in other areas too. Like if it's like social media and like, you know, like you're trying to, you know, like meet other people that are like-minded or whatever the case may be. Like if, you know, like not everybody's going to respond to you. Like it is what it is. A lot of people do. But also like if you're just like posting about you and like doing your thing and like, you know, like you're also from a personal perspective, like getting better at like, you know, if you're like taking videos or like you're, you know, writing like whatever the case is, like telling the story that like the picture is and everything. Like there's like self-growth that I feel like comes from that, of like just kind of presenting yourself and presenting that story. And like it just like there's so much like more, and like it just goes like several layers deeper, you know, just from like putting yourself out there, like growing personally, like growing your relationships with others. And it's incredibly valuable, man, especially in today's day and age.
Yeah. I just want to emphasize your point on personal growth. Huge thing, putting yourself out there. Because as you know, it gets significantly harder to meet people once you leave school.
Yep.
So you have that life skill, you can move anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And you'll be fine.
Exactly. You're right, man. But awesome, Johnny. I'm so excited that we had this talk, man.
Yeah, man. Like I think we just got so much more closer, and you know, closer than we already were. And you know, knowing that you've moved back, you know, I'm glad we had this conversation as well.
Totally, man. So where on speaking of social media, this is a really nice transition. So where on social media can you be found? I know you mentioned you're strong on LinkedIn. Anything you have, I'll put below.
Yeah, so I'm active on LinkedIn. And I also use Instagram. I strive to get my Instagram as good as my LinkedIn because, what was the word? With like, I'm better with text words than I am with like photos. And so that's where I find my strong suit on LinkedIn. But if you want to find my socials, because I have the credibility of being an author, you can literally Google my name and, you know, my socials will come up, more specifically my LinkedIn and my Instagram.
Hell yeah. Also, is your book on Amazon by any chance? Or like where can we get that, man?
Kyle, man, you can get my book anytime. I have copies in the back.
What?
But for the, you know, and I'll sign it as well, because if you order online, it won't be signed.
Gotcha.
But you can find it anywhere from Walmart to Barnes and Noble, to Amazon and Kobo.com. There's a lot of different websites. If you just Google my name, it'll come up. If you go to my website, which also comes up when you Google my name, I've listed several ways to find it as well. So all of which to say, I'm not hard to find, and the book is also not hard to find. But
Awesome.
Kyle, I got you covered.
I can't wait to read it, man. We're going to make that happen.
For sure.
But alrighty, Johnny, thank you so much again, my friend. That was absolutely awesome.
All right, guys, that concludes our Creating Wealth podcast episode for today. I want to thank every single person that has listened this far. It really means a lot to know that people can learn from me and with me as we build wealth together. Hopefully, you could take home at least one thing from this podcast that will improve your life just a little bit. If you could, please check me out on social. That's at Kyle Curtin Real Estate on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm on Biggerpockets.
Until next time, let's build together.